Now, there are not many stories that speak of corporate greed than the story of Nkosana Makate, who has been fighting for the past 25 years to get recognition and compensation for his work. If you have ever used the Please Call Me Back feature on your mobile phone, you have this guy to thank. This is Nkosana Makate, a South African accountant who back in the year 2000, whilst working as a trainee for Vodacom, suggested the idea to his boss, who promised to compensate him if his idea would become commercially viable. Well, the idea became a hit, to the extent that many mobile network operators globally adopted the idea, but to this day, he is still to get recognition and remuneration for his ideas. So the story goes, back in the year 2000, the 24-year-old Nkosana Makate was in love with the then girlfriend, now wife. The only problem was that they couldn't communicate often because making calls was expensive. The girlfriend was a student and he was just a trainee. It is out of this frustration that the idea of Call Me Back was birthed. Now, Nkosana Makate came up with the idea that would utilize USSD or unstructured supplementary service data and SMS, short message service. So basically, a user would input a USSD code and the recipient would get an SMS notification saying call me back. Now, as history has shown, this feature turned out to be a very important feature for many mobile network operators, especially in developing nations. So Nkosana pitched the idea to his superior, Philip Geisler, who was the head of product development at Vodacom South Africa. Geisler liked the idea and gave Makate a verbal agreement that if the idea would become commercially viable, Makate would be compensated. That is the first red flag Makate should have seen right there. Makate's Please Call Me Back feature was launched by Vodacom in February 2001 and was later adopted by other mobile networks in South Africa and subsequently the rest of the world. Now, Makate eventually left Vodacom in 2003 to work for Nedbank as finance manager up to 2006. Then he left and worked as finance manager for the city of Joburg from 2006. After efforts to get compensated for his work from Vodacom all but fell on deaf ears, in 2011, Nkosana Makate sued Vodacom, claiming that the agreement he had made with Geisler was binding and he wanted recognition and remuneration. The case was heard at the South Gauteng High Court and it took 3 years. Unfortunately for Makate, the High Court judge ruled in favor of Vodacom in 2014. The court ruled that although Makate originated the idea, Geisler lacked the authority to promise compensation. Vodacom's CEO, Alan Not Craig, claim of inventing the service was also rejected. The nerve. Makate then appealed the ruling at the South African Constitutional Court. In April 2016, the Constitutional Court overturned Vodacom's defense. It found Geisler had sufficient authority and Makate's claim was not time-barred. Vodacom was ordered to negotiate in good faith and let the CEO decide fair compensation for Makate. So Vodacom ended up offering Makate a whopping 10 million rand, which is roughly 500,000 US dollars. So Makate was like, you're playing. I was thinking something like 110 billion rands, which is equivalent to around 6 billion United States dollars. And Vodacom was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. The CEO of Vodacom then offered Makate 47 million rand, which is around 2.5 million US dollars. Now, I know at this point you would have taken the money. I know I would, but not Makate. He went back to the Gauteng High Court, challenging the amount the CEO had offered him. Now, this is a sign that Makate was actually comfortable financially, because no broke person would take matters this far. Now, you have to admire the patience of this man. In the year 2022, the Gauteng Provincial High Court ruled in his favor and ordered the CEO to reconsider a just and equitable compensation. So Vodacom then said, my guy, who do you think you're playing with? Just kidding. Vodacom strongly opposed the ruling, arguing that the CEO's determination should have been final and binding, and the High Court was effectively substituting its own decision, which Vodacom said it had no power to do. Vodacom then appealed the decision to the Supreme Court of Appeal. At this point, you can tell that Vodacom were now playing lawfare against Makate. But then, forking out $6 billion is not a joke. The matter went up to the Supreme Court of Appeal, where a fresh panel of judges examined whether the CEO's determination was indeed final and binding, or subject to review, and concluded that the High Court was correct in setting aside the $47 million award. In February 2024, the Supreme Court of Appeal sided with Makate. It ruled that the CEO's award was beyond review. It went aside the $47 million decision and instead ordered Vodacom to pay Makate 5 to 7.5% of revenue generated from Please Call Me over the 18 years from 2001 to 2019, plus interest. This amounted to potentially tens of billions of rands, a far larger sum than Vodacom wanted to pay. In July 2025, the Constitutional Court found the Supreme Court of Appeal ruling itself flawed, mainly in how it handled calculations and reasoning. The case was remitted back to the Supreme Court of Appeal to be heard by a different panel of judges. As of mid-2025, the battle is still unresolved and almost 25 years after Makate first came up with the idea. Now let's be honest, how many of you guys would have waited this long? The first offer, I would have probably taken the money. Let's hope Nkosana Makate will finally get paid for his work. If you found this video useful, please leave a like. I'll see you in the next video.